Jackson stood in the noisy spaceport, the lights flickering above him as traders rushed from one end to another. He waited near his workshop door, checking his tools, pretending he was not annoyed, but he was. Someone owed him money, and today was the deadline. He just wanted a quiet day, but life rarely gave him that. He heard footsteps, quick, nervous footsteps. A small alien trader ran toward him, looking frightened, looking back again and again as if someone was following him. Jackson frowned. Something was wrong. Before he could speak, the alien pushed someone forward, a girl, an alien girl, and whispered, shaking, "Take her, this is all I can give you. Please, let me go." And just like that, the man ran away. Jackson stared at the girl left behind. She stood quietly, not saying a word. Her eyes bright, shining like small stars. Her skin had a soft glow, almost like moonlight touching water. Her waist was slim, and there was a softness in her face that didn't match the fear in her eyes. She looked like she came from a world far more beautiful than this metal spaceport. For a moment, Jackson didn't move. She didn't either. They both stood there in silence, as if trying to understand what just happened. Then she lowered her gaze, breathing softly, and said in a calm but distant voice, "My name is Arya." Jackson nodded slowly. He had many questions, too many, but he could see she was scared, really scared. "Come inside," he said gently. He opened the door to his workshop, and she followed with careful steps, almost like she was afraid someone would jump out at her. Inside, dim lights flickered, and the smell of machine oil filled the air. Jackson scratched his chin and tried to think. He had been paid with strange things before. Broken tools, fake coins, even stolen robot once. But never a person, and definitely never someone like her. Arya stood near the wall, her shining eyes quietly scanning everything. She didn't look like a slave. She didn't act like one either. She stood with a grace that felt royal, like she belonged in a place with gold floors, not a dusty mechanic shop. Jackson leaned against his table, watching her carefully. "So, who are you really?" he asked. She didn't answer, just looked at him, those glowing eyes soft but filled with something heavy, something painful. "I cannot tell," she whispered. "Not yet." Jackson sighed. He wasn't planning to keep her. He wasn't planning anything, honestly. This whole situation felt wrong and dangerous. And yet, there was something about her that made him feel protective. Outside, the space station alarm echoed for a moment, a short warning. A sign that a military ship had arrived. Arya's body stiffened. Jackson noticed it immediately. "What is it?" he asked. She slowly shook her head, but her fingers trembled. He stepped forward, wanting to reassure her, but she stepped back slightly. Not running away, just keeping distance. "I will not harm you," he said softly. "I know," she replied, "but they might." There was again fear, deep fear. Jackson tried to understand. Was she escaping someone? Was that traitor running from someone too? Then a loud announcement echoed through the station speakers. "Imperial soldiers are now boarding Deck 3. All traitors remain in your areas." Arya closed her eyes tightly, as if that sentence alone cut through her. Jackson watched her carefully. "Are they looking for you?" he asked. She didn't answer, but the silence said everything. Jackson rubbed his face. He never asked for trouble. He liked simple trades, simple repairs, simple days. But today, trouble had walked right into his shop. Arya looked at him again, her glowing eyes soft, almost pleading. I did not want to cause you harm," she whispered. "I will leave if you want. I can hide on my own." But Jackson shook his head. "You won't make it out there," he said. "If soldiers are searching, they'll find you in minutes." She looked at him with surprise, as if she didn't expect kindness. He turned away, pretending it was no big deal, but even he knew he was taking a risk. He opened the back door of his workshop and gestured. "Stay here for a moment. I need to check what's happening." Arya stepped outside, into the small storage area behind the shop. The place was filled with old engine parts and metal crates. She touched a broken gear lightly, almost with curiosity, almost like she had never seen anything like it before. Jackson walked to the front window and peeked outside. Soldiers were moving through the station, slowly, searching, scanning faces. One of them held a small hologram device displaying a shape, a silhouette, a female figure. Jackson's heartbeat quickened. He didn't see the face clearly, but the outline looked too familiar. He stepped back, trying to stay calm. He needed to help her, at least until he knew what was going on. He returned to the storage area. Arya stood quietly, but her breath was fast, worried. "It's the Empire, isn't it?" Jackson asked. She looked down, then nodded once. Very small, very slow, but enough. Jackson exhaled. "All right, then you're staying here until it's safe." Arya looked up, surprised again, and for the first time, there was a tiny, gentle smile on her lips. A moment of softness, a moment of trust. And Jackson, not knowing why, smiled back. He cleared his throat and said lightly, "Well, if we're going to survive this crazy situation, then at least subscribe to this channel, all right? It really helps a lot." Arya blinked, confused, but the smile stayed. Outside, soldiers continued searching. Inside, two strangers stood together, connected by danger and something new, something that was only beginning. Jackson stood completely still as the hum of the soldiers' scanners faded down the corridor. The air inside the storage room felt heavy, almost electric, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Arya stood near the crates, her glowing eyes watching the door as though expecting it to burst open at any moment. Jackson quietly stepped inside and closed the door behind him, slowly, carefully, as if even the sound of the latch might draw attention. Arya looked at him, her voice soft. "Are they close?" Jackson nodded. "Too close." For a moment, neither spoke. Only the quiet buzz of old machine parts filled the small space between them. Arya continued to stand with her hands folded in front of her, but her fingers trembled ever so slightly. Even in her fear, she moved with a strange grace, like she had been trained from childhood to stay composed, even when the world was falling apart. Jackson leaned against a crate and exhaled. "Arya," he said, keeping his voice low, "I need to know something, anything. Why is the Empire looking for you?" Arya hesitated. Her gaze lowered, but only for a second. She lifted her head again, studying Jackson's face, searching for something, trust or danger. He couldn't tell. "I cannot say. Not fully," she whispered. "But I was not supposed to be here." Jackson rubbed his forehead in frustration. "That's not an answer." "I know," she said quietly, "but the truth could hurt you." He almost laughed, but it came out more as a tired sigh. "Well, soldiers with plasma rifles already want to blast through my workshop. So I think we passed the danger level about 10 minutes ago." A small, almost sad smile touched her face, there for a moment, then gone. Jackson turned slightly, peeking through a crack in the metal wall. He could see the soldiers searching another shop, forcing doors open, talking in sharp, commanding tones. They moved like wolves, hunting, hungry. Arya stepped closer, very quietly, and her voice came out almost like a breath. "They won't stop, not until they find me." There was something in the way she said it. Not fear, not arrogance. Something deeper. Something like certainty. Jackson turned to her, lowering his voice. "What did you do? Or what did someone do to you?" Arya swallowed, her shining eyes shifting, troubled. "I escaped." Jackson frowned. "Escaped what?" She opened her mouth slightly, then closed it again, as if the words themselves were dangerous. Jackson exhaled slowly and leaned closer. "Arya, I can't help if I don't know what we're running from." A long pause stretched between them. Heavy, tense, the air seemed to vibrate with the truth she wasn't saying. Then, a loud metallic thud shook the workshop. Arya flinched. Jackson's heart jumped. Another thud, louder, coming from the front door. He rushed to the small control screen. The camera outside flickered on, showing two Imperial soldiers standing at his entrance. They weren't knocking. They were forcing it open. Jackson whispered sharply, "They found us, move." He grabbed Arya's hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling. She followed without protest as he guided her deeper into the storage area, toward a hidden maintenance hatch behind stacked crates. Inside, he whispered. Arya crawled into the narrow space, her glowing eyes catching the dim light as she looked back at him. He sealed the hatch cover, just as. Bang! The workshop door burst open. Jackson froze. Heavy footsteps entered. Shadows shifted across the floor. The soldiers scanned the room with harsh blue beams. One voice barked, "Search every corner. The princess must be close." Arya shut her eyes behind the hatch cover, breath catching. Jackson's pulse stopped. "Princess? Princess?" He repeated the word silently, again and again, trying to make it fit with the girl he had met only an hour ago. The girl hiding inches behind him. Princess. The truth was slipping into place now, connecting like pieces of a puzzle made of danger. The soldiers moved. Crates clattered. Boots scraped against metal. Jackson pressed himself against the wall, praying the old machines and scrap parts would hide the hatch. A soldier stepped closer. Closer. Jackson could see the bright outline of his visor. He held his breath. Arya held hers. The soldiers scanned the storage crates with a handheld device. The beam crawled across the metal boxes, slowly, pausing, humming. It stopped directly over the hatch. Arya's eyes widened in the darkness. Jackson's heart pounded so hard he thought it would echo. The scanner beeped once. And then, the soldier turned away. No heat signatures. She's not here. Jackson almost collapsed from relief. The soldiers left the room, their footsteps fading slowly, until finally the workshop fell silent. Jackson waited a few moments before opening the hatch. Arya crawled out carefully, her breath shaking, her eyes bright with fear, but also something else, guilt. "Princess," Jackson whispered, his voice low, stunned. "You're a princess." Arya didn't answer, but she didn't deny it either. Her silence was the truth. Jackson paced slowly, rubbing his forehead. "This is insane. I'm hiding a princess from an entire empire." Arya watched him, her voice soft, almost apologetic. "I do not want to pull you into this. I never wanted to endanger you." Jackson stopped and looked at her. "But you're in danger. That's reason enough." She stared at him for a long moment, as if she didn't understand why someone would help her. As if kindness was something rare in her world. The station alarms echoed again, deeper this time, more serious. More soldiers were arriving. Jackson stepped closer to Arya, voice steady. "Listen, if the Empire is hunting you, then we need to leave this station. Now." Her eyes softened, shining brighter. "You would help me, even after knowing what I am." Jackson looked toward the door, listening to the distant boots approaching again. "Right now," he said quietly, "you're someone who needs help, princess or not." She lowered her gaze, then lifted it again with new strength, new trust. "Then I will follow you," she whispered. Jackson nodded once. "Good, because things are about to get worse." And just as he said that, a sudden explosion shook the entire space station. Lights flickered, the ground trembled, and outside, the soldiers shouted, "She's here! Track every exit! Seal the station!" Arya's eyes widened. Jackson grabbed her hand again. "Run!" And together, they rushed into the unknown as the Empire closed in. The station shook again, harder this time, dust falling from the ceiling like snow. Jackson pulled Arya into the narrow service corridor behind his workshop, the metal walls rattling as alarms wailed across every deck. The entire station had shifted into full lockdown, all because of her. Arya kept close behind him, her breath quick but controlled, her glowing eyes scanning every shadow. She moved silently, too silently, with the grace of someone trained to hide, survive, and run. Jackson didn't waste a second. He knew this station better than most soldiers did. He knew the weak spots, the broken cameras, the forgotten ducks. But against an Imperial hunt team, it might not be enough. They reached a cross junction. Lights flickered. Loud boots echoed in the distance. Jackson raised a hand, signaling Arya to stop. She froze instantly. He could hear them, soldiers, splitting into groups, spreading out, hunting like predators. Arya leaned closer, whispering barely above a breath. "They're using trackers now. They can sense royal energy signatures." Jackson looked at her sharply. "Meaning they can sense you." She nodded slowly, guilt in her eyes, fear in her posture. Jackson inhaled. All right, we'll have to mask your signal. But how? He pointed toward an old maintenance vault. Come on. They slipped inside. The room was filled with dust-covered equipment, half-dead generators, and loose cables. Jackson flipped open a control panel, sparks jumping as he reconnected a power loop. Arya watched him surprised. You know how to disrupt Imperial scanners? Jackson didn't look up. I know how to disrupt everything. It's my job. For a moment, she almost smiled. But that moment was cut short by a deep, metallic roar vibrating through the floor. Arya tensed. Jackson felt the vibration in his bones. That's not a soldier, he whispered. No, Arya breathed. That is their hunting drone. Something slammed against a metal wall outside, hard enough to bend steel. Arya stepped closer to Jackson, voice shaking. Those machines do not stop. They can tear through walls or people. Jackson finished wiring a pulse coil and muttered, Yeah, I figured they weren't here to give you flowers. He triggered the coil. A deep pulse spread through the room. Lights dimming, machines humming low. Arya closed her eyes and exhaled. My energy signature, it feels masked now. Good, Jackson said, but it won't last long. He opened the back door. A dark shadow moved across the hallway. Jackson grabbed Arya and pulled her back against the wall just before a massive hunting drone walked past. Tall, insect-like, armored in black plates. Its glowing red sensors scanned everything, slicing blue beams across the corridor. It paused one long mechanical second, as if sniffing the air. Arya held her breath. Jackson did the same. The machine tilted its head, then moved on, each step thundering like a hammer. Jackson waited until it disappeared, then whispered, We need to get to the lower docks. I have a side ship there, old but fast. How far? She asked. 2 decks down. Arya breathed out, steadying herself. Lead the way. Jackson checked the corridor again, then guided her through the maze of metal halls. The station lights flickered again, switching to emergency red. Shadows stretched long and sharp across the walls. Every sound, the hiss of pipes, the crackle of old wires, felt like a threat. They reached a spiral staircase leading downward, but Jackson stopped immediately. Below them, soldiers stood guard. 6 of them, all armed. Arya placed a hand on Jackson's arm, her voice a trembling whisper. We cannot fight them. Wasn't planning to. He pointed to a maintenance pipe running parallel to the stairs. Arya looked at it, then at him. That is very small. Well, Jackson said, unless you want to walk straight into 6 rifles. She didn't argue. They crawled into the pipe, Jackson first, Arya following. It was dark, tight, every movement echoing softly. The metal was cold against their arms as they dragged themselves forward inch by inch. Halfway through, Arya whispered, Jackson, why are you helping me? He didn't answer right away. The truth was complicated, dangerous, irritating. I don't know, he muttered at last. Maybe because you didn't deserve to be hunted. Arya's voice softened behind him. No one has ever helped me without asking for something back. Jackson almost turned to look at her, but the pipe was too narrow. Well, guess I'm strange, he said quietly. Or kind, she whispered. Before Jackson could react, a loud metallic crash slammed against the pipe. Arya gasped. Jackson cursed under his breath. The hunting drone had detected something. Its massive claws wrapped around the pipe, squeezing, denting the metal. Light poured through a crack as the machine tore at it. Arya whispered urgently. It knows. I can see that. The pipe split open behind them, metal shrieking, chunks falling. Jackson pushed forward harder. Move, Arya. The pipe tore apart completely, and the drone roared, its red eyes blazing as it reached inside with razor claws. Arya screamed softly. Jackson grabbed her hand and pulled her out the end of the pipe, rolling onto the lower deck floor. The drone burst out behind them, smashing through the wall. Alarm screamed. Soldiers shouted. Arya trembled, staring at the monster closing in. Jackson took her hand, held it tight. Run! And together, they sprinted down the corridor, the drone crashing behind them, the Empire closing in, and the truth of who Arya really was. still hidden in the shadows between their breaths. The hallway shook as the hunting drone crashed through the metal behind them, ripping apart pipes with claws that sounded like tearing steel. Sparks flew across the floor as Jackson and Arya ran. Jackson pulling her, Arya struggling to keep pace but never letting go of his hand. Every time the drone's claws slammed into the ground, the whole deck seemed to jump beneath their feet. They turned sharply into a narrow tunnel. The lights were dim, flickering, barely alive. Jackson's boots skidded on the metal floor, and he nearly lost his balance. But Arya steadied him with a quick grip, her glowing eyes bright with urgency. "Keep going," she whispered sharply. "It will not stop." "I know," he snapped breathlessly, pushing forward. They reached a fork in the passage. Jackson stopped, just for a moment, trying to remember which route led to the lower docks. The drone's heavy steps grew louder, closer, vibrating through the walls like the growl of some metallic beast. Arya stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Jackson, please choose fast." He closed his eyes for half a second, mapping the station in his mind. Left. He grabbed her hand again and sprinted left. The corridor suddenly opened into a larger chamber, filled with old, rusted cargo containers and flickering blue lamps. Somewhere in the distance, a ventilation fan turned slowly, the blades clicking every few seconds like an old clock. Arya slowed for a moment, struggling to catch her breath. "Jackson, I'm slowing you down." "You're not," he said firmly. "Just keep moving." "But, no buts." She stared at him, eyes softening, but before she could speak, a metallic thud echoed from behind them. The drone had entered the chamber. Its red sensors scanned across the walls, the ceiling, the floor. A second later, its claws dug into the metal, anchoring itself as it prepared to leap. Arya gasped. Jackson grabbed her arm and pulled her behind a large cargo crate just as the drone launched forward, slamming into the opposite wall with terrifying force. Metal bent under its weight, sparks raining down like fireflies. Arya clung to Jackson's arm, whispering, "It will not stop. These machines, they only end when their target is dead or captured." Jackson peeked around the crate, watching the machine scan the shadows, its crimson eyes glowing brighter each second. "Yeah, I kind of figured that part out already." Arya swallowed nervously. "Jackson, if it captures me, it will kill you. That is how the Empire handles witnesses." "Well," Jackson muttered, "let's make sure that doesn't happen." The drone turned sharply, its sensors locking onto something. Jackson tensed. Arya froze. For a long, tense moment, everything went silent, painfully silent. Then, the drone unleashed a piercing screeching sound, a mechanical roar that echoed like ripping metal. Jackson whispered urgently, "Now run this way." He pulled her behind another row of crates, zigzagging through them as the drone smashed through the first one like paper. The entire chamber shook as boxes tumbled, scattering broken parts everywhere. They climbed over a metal barrier, Jackson slipping but catching himself, Arya helping him pull up. They dropped down the other side, landing hard, but they didn't stop. The drone leapt again, slamming down only meters behind them. Arya stumbled from the impact. Jackson grabbed her before she fell. "You okay?" She nodded, breathless. "Jackson, how much farther?" "Not far, just through that hatch." He pointed to a circular metal door, half hidden by crates. He sprinted toward it, Arya close behind. Jackson slammed his palm against the panel. Nothing. The door was dead. Arya looked up at him, panic rising. "It's locked." "No, it's worse, power's out." The drone screeched again and began tearing its way toward them. Arya stepped closer to the door, placing her hand gently on the metal. "Maybe I can override it." Jackson's eyes widened. "Can you do that?" "I don't know. I never tried." Her glowing eyes brightened slightly as she concentrated. Small pulses of light sparkled under her skin, traveling down her arm into her palm. The panel flickered, then sparked, then lit up completely. Jackson stared. "Arya, what did you—" "No time. Open it." He slammed the panel again. The hatch opened. Arya stepped through first, Jackson right behind her. But before he could close the door, the drone charged. It slammed its claws against the hatch rim, metal groaning under the force. Jackson pushed with all his strength, but the machine forced its way in inch by inch. Arya grabbed the edge, helping him push. The drone roared. Its claws scraped closer, closer. Jackson gritted his teeth. Arya, push now. A surge of light flashed from her hands. Small, bright, quick. The drone recoiled just enough. Jackson slammed the hatch shut. The drone pounded on the other side, metal booming with every strike. Arya leaned back against the wall, trembling. Jackson panted heavily, wiping sweat from his brow. That was too close. Arya nodded, voice shaking. Thank you again. Jackson looked at her, really looked at her. And for a moment he forgot the danger, forgot the Empire, forgot the drone trying to kill them. She stood glowing softly in the dim light, frightened, but strong, mysterious, and carrying a secret so big it shook the universe around her. He swallowed once and said quietly, "Let's get to the ship, before that thing breaks through." Arya stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, lead the way. But just as they took the first step forward, a distant, deep voice echoed through the deck speakers. "Princess Arya Lyvarin, you cannot run forever." Arya froze. Her eyes widened. Jackson felt a chill crawl up his spine. The voice continued, cold, calm, cruel. "You belong to the Empire." Arya whispered. "No, not him. Anyone but him." Jackson turned to her. "Arya, who is that?" She looked up at him, tears gathering in her glowing eyes. "The one I was promised to." She trembled. "He is here." The voice echoing across the station felt colder than the metal walls around them. It seeped into the air, into the floor, into Arya's bones. Her glowing eyes dimmed for a heartbeat, as though the sound alone stole the warmth from her. Jackson didn't move at first. He just stared at her, trying to understand the sudden fear on her face. This wasn't the fear she showed toward the soldiers or the drone. This fear was deeper, older, personal. "Arya," he whispered softly. "Who is he?" Her breath trembled as she answered, her voice barely holding together. "He is the Empire's commander, and he is the one they forced me to marry." Jackson's stomach dropped. Forced. Commander. Marriage. Hunted. And now this man, this powerful, merciless figure, was here, on the station, hunting her himself. "Why you?" Jackson asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Why would he chase you this far?" Arya wrapped her arms around herself, as if trying to hold the pieces of her together. "I am the heir, the next ruler of my people. If I refused him, he loses power. The Empire loses control. So he wants me back alive or chained." Her voice cracked at the last word. Jackson felt something sharp twist inside his chest. He had no idea how tangled her life truly was until now. The speakers crackled again, and the commander's voice returned, smooth, calm, terrifyingly controlled. "Arya, you know I never liked chasing. Come home, or I will tear apart every deck of this station until I find you." Arya flinched as if struck. Jackson clenched his fists. "All right," he said quietly but firmly. "We're leaving. Now." He took Arya's hand again, and she didn't resist. She followed him through the narrow corridor beyond the hatch. The lights here were older, weak, buzzing, blinking at random, but it made it easier to stay unseen. Jackson led her down a slanted walkway that rattled under their footsteps. "Where does this lead?" Arya asked, voice low. "To the subdocks. My ship is old, but it'll fly." "And if he blocks the exits?" "Then we improvise." Arya almost smiled at his stubborn determination, almost. But the fear in her eyes remained. They reached a small maintenance door at the bottom of the walkway. Jackson opened the panel, fixed a loose wire, and the door hissed open. Beyond it was a dark, circular chamber filled with humming pipes and shadows. Arya stepped inside, then paused. "Jackson," she whispered. He turned. "There are 2 energy signatures here." "What?" Before he could even react, 2 Imperial soldiers stepped from the shadows, rifles aimed, visors glowing. Arya gasped. Jackson pulled her behind him instinctively. The soldiers spoke in perfect unison, cold, emotionless. Princess Arya, you'll come with us. Jackson raised a hand. Hey, let's not do anything. One soldier stepped closer, weapon aimed directly at Arya. You are interfering with Imperial affairs. Step aside, human. Jackson's jaw tightened. Not happening. The soldier tilted his head slightly. Then you will die. He fired. A blast of blue plasma shot forward. But Arya moved faster than Jackson had ever seen. She grabbed Jackson's arm and pulled him sideways, the plasma bolt slamming into the metal wall, leaving a glowing crater. Jackson stared at the impact, stunned. Remind me, he whispered, why you didn't tell me you could do things like that? Arya didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed on the soldiers. The second soldier fired. Arya pulled Jackson again, and the bolt hit the floor, exploding in a burst of sparks. They dove behind a pipe cluster. Jackson tried to catch his breath, but Arya didn't waste a moment. Jackson, she whispered, look at me. He did. Her eyes glowed brighter than before, full of fear and determination. If they capture me, they will kill you, she said quietly. So we fight. Together. Jackson swallowed. I'm not much of a fighter. But you're brave, she whispered. She placed her hand over the pipe's metal surface, her skin glowing faintly. The metal vibrated under her touch, as if it came alive. What are you? A pulse exploded outward, shaking the chamber as if lightning had struck it. The soldiers staggered back, disoriented. Arya grabbed Jackson's arm. Run. They sprinted toward the maintenance stairs while the soldiers struggled to regain balance. One of them raised his rifle again, firing blindly. A bullet hit a pipe above Arya. Steam blasted out, burning hot vapor swirling everywhere. Jackson pulled her out of the cloud, coughing. Are you hurt? No, keep going. Behind them, footsteps pounded as the soldiers chased them. A siren began to blare overhead, signaling a new lockdown. Great, Jackson muttered breathlessly. He's sealing the lower decks. They reached the bottom of the stairs, and Jackson's heart sank. A blast door was closing. Fast. Arya, go, he shouted. She sprinted ahead. Jackson shoved her forward just enough, and she slipped under the door, landing on the other side. Jackson dove. The door slammed shut. Arya screamed. Jackson. He hit the metal hard, barely missing being crushed. He pounded the door from his side. Arya, keep going. My ship is right there. Her glowing eyes stared through the small window slot in the door, fear and desperation burning in them. I will open it. Don't move. Jackson heard marching behind him. The soldiers were coming. Arya placed her hands on the panel, glowing energy sparking under her touch as she tried to override the lock. But the system refused her. No, she whispered. It's controlled by him. He is blocking me. Jackson heard the commander's voice again, this time much closer, echoing through the hall behind him. You should not have run, Arya, and you should not have trusted a human. Arya looked at Jackson with horror. The shadows behind him grew darker as multiple figures approached. Jackson backed against the sealed door, fists clenched. No weapon, no escape. Arya slammed her hands against the glass. Jackson, move, run, please. He didn't. He stared at the approaching silhouettes. Arya, he whispered, don't look away. I'm not leaving you. Her eyes filled with tears. A tall figure stepped from the shadows, armor gleaming silver black, eyes burning with cold authority. The commander. He stopped only a few meters from Jackson. Jackson clenched his jaw. You want her? You go through me. The commander tilted his head. Very well. He raised his hand. Arya screamed from behind the glass, and the air around Jackson began to tremble. The air around Jackson trembled, vibrating like a trapped storm, as if invisible hands were squeezing the space around him. His breath caught in his throat. His vision blurred. Arya pounded on the blast door window from the other side, her glowing eyes wide with terror. Jackson, look at me. Don't let him break you. Please. But Jackson couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The commander stepped closer, each step echoing like a cold heartbeat, metal boots striking the floor with perfect, cruel confidence. His silver-black armor glimmered under the flickering emergency lights, and the air seemed to grow colder around him. His face was calm, too calm, like someone who had never doubted victory. His voice slipped through the silence like a blade. Humans were always fragile. Arya shook the blast window, frantically, tears glowing in her eyes. Stop. Stop hurting him. This is between you and me. Leave him. The commander turned his head slightly, studying her through the glass slot, his expression unchanged. Arya, my future wife, you ran away. You brought a stranger into royal matters. This human broke imperial law by touching you, hiding you, defending you. His life is forfeit. And oh, she screamed. Jackson gasped as the invisible pressure tightened around him. He dropped to one knee, the floor shaking beneath him. His chest felt like it was being crushed by a planet. But still, he forced his eyes up, staring straight into the commander's cold gaze. Let her go. The commander raised a brow. You still speak? Impressive. He lifted his hand, and the pressure doubled. Jackson's vision exploded with stars. Arya's voice cracked. Please. He did nothing. I forced him into this. I beg him to help. Punish me, not him. The commander smirked. You misunderstand, princess. I enjoy punishing him. It teaches you obedience. Arya's eyes widened in horror, and then something inside her snapped. A faint glow spread beneath her skin, soft at first, then brighter, then burning like a star. She placed both hands on the blast door panel. The energy pulsed out of her palms, spreading across the metal like glowing veins. Sparks flew everywhere. The commander paused. Interesting, Arya whispered through clenched teeth. Touch him again, and I will end you. The blast door groaned under her power. A trembling crack appeared along the top edge. The metal bent. Lights flickered violently. The commander lowered his hand slightly, studying her like a scientist examining a rare creature. You dare unlock your heritage? After years of hiding it. Arya didn't answer. She couldn't. Her anger was too deep. Her fear too sharp. Her power too wild. Jackson, barely conscious, forced out a single word. Arya. She heard him. That single broken word shattered her last restraint. Her glow intensified, spreading from her hands to her arms, lifting strands of her hair as if she were underwater. The energy hummed, swelling, rising like a sun being born inside her chest. Arya, stop, the commander warned, stepping back. You do not yet know how to control. Good, she cried. Then maybe you should be afraid. The blast door exploded outward. Metal shards flew like silver rain. The commander shielded his face with an armored arm. The shockwave knocked Jackson backward, sending him crashing into the wall. Arya stepped through the opening, her body still glowing with raw, uncontrolled energy. She looked nothing like a frightened princess now. She looked like something ancient, powerful awakened. She walked toward Jackson, kneeling beside him. Jackson, stay with me, please. He tried to lift his hand. I'm fine. You're not, she whispered, tears streaming silently. But you will be. I won't let him touch you again. Behind them, the commander rose to his full height. His armor hissed as it repaired micro-damage. His eyes glowed with anger now, not cold, not controlled, but furious. So, he said softly, the princess remembers who she is. Arya turned slowly, her energy still flickering around her like living fire. Stay behind me, she told Jackson. He tried to stand, failed, and slid back against the wall. Arya faced the commander fully now. Every light on the deck flickered wildly. Electric arcs danced along the ceiling. The air rippled with heat. The commander took one step forward. Your power belongs to the Empire. Arya's voice echoed with something deeper, older, like the whisper of star. No, my power belongs to me. She raised her hand, energy swirling, building. The commander extended his palm, gathering, crackling dark light. Two forces, ancient royal power and imperial war energy, clashed invisibly between them, making the air spark like lightning trapped between their wills. Jackson watched helplessly as the deck shook beneath them. Cracks split along the floor. Pipes burst. Sirens wailed. The whole station moaned like a living creature under stress. The tension grew, thicker, louder. Arya pushed harder, her eyes blazing white. The commander laughed softly. "Is that all you can muster, runaway bride?" Arya screamed with effort, her power erupting in a brilliant wave. And both of them were thrown backward by the explosion of force. Smoke filled the corridor. Sparks showered from the ceiling. The deck lights died completely. Jackson blinked through the haze, coughing. "Arya," he whispered. He saw a glowing hand through the smoke, trembling, try to rise. He crawled toward her, but a shadow moved behind her. The commander stood up first. Armor cracked, visor shattered, but alive. He reached toward Arya's unconscious form and whispered with a voice full of triumph. Finally, Jackson tried to shout, but the world went black. The world returned to Jackson in fragments, blurry lights, smoke twisting through the air, the heavy taste of metal dust in his mouth. His head throbbed. His hearing faded in and out, like a broken radio tuning between nightmares. But through all of it, one thought cut through the fog like a blade. "Arya, where is Arya?" He pushed himself up with trembling arms. His body screamed in protest, but he forced it to move. The corridor around him was a ruin. Walls cracked, pipes torn open, steam hissing like wounded serpents. The blast door lay twisted on the floor like a crushed can, and the sound of armored footsteps echoed softly ahead. Jackson blinked hard, clearing his vision. There he was, the commander, dragging Arya's limp form across the deck. Her hair trailed behind her like silver fire, her glowing skin dimmed to a faint flicker. Her arms hung weakly. Her head rested against the commander's shoulder in unconscious surrender. Jackson's chest tightened with rage and helplessness. "Arya," he whispered, his voice broken. The commander paused, turned, and looked directly at him. Even with his visor shattered, the man somehow looked more terrifying. His eyes were sharp, cold, burning with a hunger for control. "You survived," he said simply. "I expected less." Jackson tried to stand, gripping a broken pipe for support. "What are you doing with her?" "Finishing what destiny demands." The commander lifted Arya slightly, positioning her over one shoulder. "She was born to rule, born to bind the empire together, born to be mine." "You don't own her," Jackson spat, breath ragged. The commander raised a brow. "You have feelings for her." It wasn't a question. It was a disdainful observation. Jackson didn't answer, but he didn't have to. His silence said everything. The commander smirked, a smile with no warmth. How primitive. How human. His hand brushed a strand of Arya's silver hair aside, almost possessively. "She's royalty. You are dust. Don't mistake her desperation for affection." Jackson's fist tightened. "She asked me for help. She trusted me. And look where your help brought her," the commander said, stepping away. The words hit Jackson like a strike, but he didn't move aside. Couldn't. Wouldn't. He staggered forward. "Put her down." The commander stopped, almost amused. "You would die for her." Jackson glared, breathing unevenly but steady. "I would." Silence filled the ruined hallway. Then the commander tilted his head in mock respect. Bravery or foolishness? The line between them is thin. He raised his hand, and energy swirled around his fingers. Before he could strike, a voice crackled through the station speakers. "Warning, hull integrity at 12%. Structural collapse imminent." The commander looked annoyed. He glanced upward at the alarms, then back at Jackson. "It appears this station is dying." He shifted Arya's weight, and "I must leave before it takes her with it." Jackson tried to step closer, but the floor beneath him cracked. A chunk of metal collapsed, separating him from the commander by a widening gap. Jackson stumbled back, heart pounding. "Arya," he shouted. Her fingers twitched slightly, just barely, in recognition. The commander stepped onto the rising emergency lift at the far end of the corridor. "Goodbye, human," he said coldly. "You were a minor inconvenience." The lift rose rapidly, pulling the commander and Arya upward and out of sight. Jackson tried to leap across the cracked floor, but the gap split wider, molten metal glowing beneath like a burning throat. He fell back, hitting the ground hard. For a moment, he simply lay there, breathing heavily, staring at the empty space where Arya had been. Then, he heard a faint sound, a soft mechanical chirp. Jackson looked to his right. An emergency maintenance drone, small, round, dented, hovered shakily near him, projecting a broken hologram map of the station. Jackson squinted at the display. A route blinked in red. A path to the upper launch bay. A path the commander would use to reach his ship. Jackson wiped blood from his lip, forcing himself upright. "All right," he breathed. "Let's do this." The drone blinked at him, waiting. Jackson nodded at it. "Show me the fastest way." The drone beeped in confirmation and zipped ahead. Jackson limped after it, the station shaking violently around him. Sirens blared. Sparks rained from broken wires. Steam shot through ruptured pipes. Entire sections of flooring fell away, exposing the darkness below. Every few steps, he nearly collapsed. Every few steps, Arya's face pushed him forward again. He repeated her name softly, like a promise. "I'm coming. Arya, hold on." The drone led him into a vertical shaft with a ladder, stretching upward into darkness. Jackson grabbed the first rung. His hand slid on oil. His muscles trembled. The station's structure groaned ominously. "You can't give up," he whispered to himself. "Not now." He climbed. Higher. Higher. Each rung felt heavier than the last. Halfway up, he heard the commander's voice again, echoing faintly through the ventilation shafts. "Prepare the ship. The princess is secured." Jackson gritted his teeth. His pace quickened. At the top of the shaft, he shoved open the hatch and dragged himself into a hallway filled with smoke and flashing lights. The drone circled him, beeping nervously. Ahead, through the haze, Jackson saw a long corridor leading to the launch bay. And at the far end of it, a silhouette, tall, armored, carrying someone limp in his arms. Jackson felt the world narrow to a point. His pain disappeared. His fear burned away. "Arya!" he shouted. The commander didn't turn, didn't rush, didn't care. He carried her toward the bay doors like a man carrying a prize. Jackson started running. His legs barely worked, but he ran anyway. The station shook. The lights died. Fire burst from the ceiling. Metal fell around him. But he ran. He ran like everything he had ever been depended on this moment. He screamed her name again. "Arya!" This time, she heard him. Her head moved slightly over the commander's shoulder. Her glowing eyes fluttered open, weak, half-conscious. Jackson." The commander paused, turned slowly, and smiled. Still alive, impressive. Arya struggled weakly in his grip. "Let him go." But the commander only tightened his hold on her. "No." He lifted his other hand, ready to strike Jackson down once and for all. Jackson braced himself, when suddenly, the entire launch bay door behind the commander exploded inward in a shower of fire and debris. A massive shadow stepped through the flames. Something, or someone, neither Jackson nor the commander expected. And the fate of all three changed in an instant.